The moon hangs high in the sky, its full glow casting long shadows across the village of Kijiji. The night feels different. Silence settles over the land, thick and heavy. The usual chatter of the village, the sounds of children playing, and the bustle of preparation for the hunter's return have all ceased. The hunters have not come back. Not a single drum, no sign of movement from the paths they should have walked. The whole village waits in fear. At the edge of the clearing, standing apart from the others, Tariq stares into the vast darkness beyond the village's borders. He is the youngest elder, but today he feels the weight of the title. His hands tremble as he clutches the amulet his mother once gave him. It's a simple piece, a charm meant to protect, but Tariq knows its power is limited. In this moment, the world feels too large, too full of mysteries and dangers beyond his control. The hunters, his brothers, his friends are gone, and now something calls to him from the forest. A rustling from the shadows catches his attention, his heart skipping a beat. Old Nia, the village shaman, emerges from the darkness. Her face is stern, her eyes deep with knowledge and warning. She stops in front of him, no words yet, only a look. Old Nia speaks in whispers that only Tariq can hear. The hunters have failed. The forest has claimed them, and now it demands its due. Tariq listens, a chill running through him. Old Nia's words are always steeped in truth, but this is something new. She tells him the jungle is alive, that its spirits are stirring, and if he does not act, the spirits will turn their fury on the village. The whispers of the jungle, its ancient magic, have been awakened, and the balance is tipping. Go, Tariq. You are the only one who can stop it. Only you can pay the price the forest demands. Fear claws at Tariq's insides, but something stronger pushes it away. His mind flashes to the stories of those who had gone into the forest and never returned, of those who had tried to fight what they could not see. But Tariq is different. He has no choice. I will go, he says, his voice shaking but with a determination that surprises him. I will find them. I will save the village. He grips the amulet tighter. It is only a trinket, but it is all he has left. His heart pounds as he steps toward the jungle, leaving the safety of the village behind. The forest welcomes him with a cold breath. Shadows twist around him, the sounds of the jungle closing in, as if it's alive, watching, waiting. Every step he takes pulls him further from the world he knows. Every movement, every creak of a branch or snap of a twig beneath his feet feels like the eyes of the spirits are on him. But Tariq doesn't turn back. Not now. The jungle swallows him whole. Kijiji stood in peace, a village woven into the rhythm of the earth and the pulse of the forest. The villagers worked the land with respect for the spirits that watched over them, and the jungle stood as a protector, a silent guardian. It was a time of harmony, where the forces of nature and man lived side by side, each respecting the other's domain. But that peace was broken, splintered by one careless act, one betrayal. The elders had warned of the forest's power, but Tariq's great-grandfather, consumed by greed and pride, dared to defy the spirits. His disrespect, the violation of an ancient pact, set in motion a curse that would follow the village for generations. The balance that had once been perfect, now shattered, leaving the forest to claim a heavy price. Every new moon, the strongest hunters of Kijiji would disappear, claimed by the very spirits they had once honored. No one could escape the consequences of the betrayal. Malik, the pride of the village, a hunter feared and revered, became the next victim. He ventured into the jungle one new moon, seeking to prove his strength, his unshakable belief in his own power. He never returned. The forest took him. Tariq's father, the man he had admired most, was swallowed by the jungle. His legacy, his name, faded into the whispers of the trees. The village mourned, but the weight of that loss crushed Tariq, for he was now the son of the lost, the heir to the legacy of a man who had failed to return. Tariq felt the pressure of it all, the stories of the forest's wrath haunting his thoughts, the weight of his father's absence, the stories his mother had told him, the warnings about the spirits pressed down on him. Tariq was the last hope. His people needed him, but the path ahead felt too dark, too uncertain. His father's disappearance had left a shadow over him, one that stretched into the depths of the jungle and into his soul. The burden of legacy, of loss, and of an unbroken curse threatened to consume him. The words his mother had spoken so many times echoed in his mind. "Do not disturb the spirits." Those words would follow him as he stepped into the jungle, his hands trembling around the amulet his mother had given him. It was meant to protect him, but Tariq knew it could do little against the anger of the forest's ancient guardians. Arriving at the hunter's last camp, Tariq's heart sank. The once lively site now lay silent, abandoned. The fire pit, cold and dark, and scattered gear told the tale of a hurried departure. But it was the footprints, deep in the earth and leading into the darkened woods, that called to him. He knew they would lead him deeper, deeper into the heart of the jungle where the spirits lived and where no hunter had returned. With every step, the jungle closed in around him. The trees seemed to grow taller, the shadows deeper, and the air heavier. The path narrowed, the forest itself pressing against him, making each step feel like a battle against the very land. It was then that the silence fell, heavy, thick, suffocating. And then came the whispers, faint at first, like the rustling of wind through leaves, but they grew clearer, more insistent. "Return, before the moon is gone." They were not the voices of the wind, not the sounds of the jungle, but the voices of the spirits themselves. Tariq paused, his breath caught in his chest. The forest was alive, and it was speaking to him. His heart raced, fear creeping in. But he couldn't. Turn back, not now. The whispers grew louder, but Tariq pressed forward, knowing that whatever waited for him, he had no choice but to face it. The jungle had already claimed so much. Now it sought him too. The jungle thickened around Tariq, the dense foliage closing, in as though the very trees were leaning in to whisper their warnings. The path grew narrower, darker, and the air heavier. Each step felt like a battle, the weight of the forest pressing against him, urging him to turn back. The whispers grew louder, almost pleading, calling out to him to leave, to escape the curse that was closing in. But Tariq's resolve held firm. He could not retreat. His father's legacy, the village's fate, it all lay in his hands now. He had come too far to turn around. As his footfalls echoed in the quiet jungle, a moonlit clearing suddenly opened before him. The soft glow illuminated an ancient tree, its gnarled branches reaching like twisted hands into the sky. The bark, dark and cracked, seemed to hold centuries of secrets within its folds. This was the place. The stories his mother had told him of the forest's heart, the sacred ground where the spirits held sway, were true. But the realization brought him no comfort, only a chill that ran down his spine. The ground was littered with remnants of what had once been. Broken spears, knives dulled by time, and torn clothing scattered around an altar of stone. These were the remains of the missing hunters, the very ones who had vanished under the curse. They had come here, as he had, but they had not returned. Tariq's heart pounded in his chest. The altar was a sign, a place of sacrifice where the spirits had taken what they were owed. But where were the hunters? Their fates were sealed, yet their bodies were nowhere to be found. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall and gaunt, with hollow eyes that seemed to see through Tariq to the very core of his soul. The man stepped forward, his presence marked by strange symbols etched into his skin, markings that glowed faintly in the moonlight. His voice was raspy, heavy with the weight of 1,000 warnings. "Turn back," the man's voice rasped, a warning that rang in Tariq's ears. "It is not too late. The jungle will take what it is owed. The spirits do not forgive." Tariq's grip tightened around his amulet, the charm from his mother, but it offered him no comfort. The man's words were heavy, like stones on his chest. "The forest demands its price," the man continued, his eyes never leaving Tariq's. "Your ancestors' debts are not so easily paid. They were bound by the spirits long ago, and now the debt is yours to carry. You are the last of the bloodline, the last to have a chance at redemption. But your actions, they will tip the balance." Tariq took a step back, his heart hammering. The realization hit him like a wave. The hunters were not lost, as everyone believed. They had been claimed by the spirits, yes, but not as victims. They had been bound as guardians, condemned to protect the very jungle they had once betrayed. They had paid the price of their ancestors' sins, and now it was Tariq's turn to face the same fate. The figure's hollow eyes bore into him, accusing. "You disturbed the balance. The jungle was at peace until your great-grandfather's betrayal, until your father's pride. Now you have walked into the heart of it. You are part of the price." Tariq's breath caught in his throat. His father's disappearance, the missing hunters, everything was part of the same cycle. The balance had been tipped long ago, and now Tariq stood at the edge, the weight of the forest's fury pressing down on him. A cold wind rustled the leaves, and the man's voice became quieter, almost sympathetic. "There is a choice before you," he said, his eyes narrowing. "The forest will take its price from you. You will either become one of the guardians, bound to the jungle as the hunters were, or you will fight to undo the wrongs of your ancestors. But be warned, the price of undoing the curse may be greater than you are willing to pay." Tariq's mind raced. Could he truly undo the wrongs of his bloodline? Could he find a way to free the jungle from its wrath? Or would he too be swallowed by its ancient demands like those before him? The choice was before him, but it was not a simple one. The jungle had already claimed so much. Now it was asking for more. The man stood silent, waiting. The whispers of the forest seemed to grow louder, more insistent, as though the jungle itself was waiting for Tariq's decision. The weight of the past, the legacy of his father and his ancestors, pressed in on him. The jungle was alive with power, with rage, and it would not rest until its price was paid. Tariq took a deep breath, knowing that the moment had come. The path he chose would shape not only his fate, but the fate of the entire village. The decision weighed on him like the heaviest stone, but he knew one thing for certain: there was no turning back now. The jungle had made its demands, and Tariq had to answer. The weight of his ancestors' sins crushed down on Tariq. The realization hit him with the force of a thunderclap. His family's betrayal, his great-grandfather's broken pact with the spirits had led to this moment. The jungle, once a place of balance, had been tipped into wrath, and now the forest demanded its price. Tariq's heart pounded as he stared at the twisted altar, the remnants of the hunters scattered before him. He had not just come to find his father. He had come to face the reckoning of generations. The air grew thick. The ground beneath his feet trembled. A low, deep rumble shook the trees. The forest, ancient and alive, was stirring. The power that had slept for so long was awakening, rising like a storm from the earth. Tariq's skin crawled as the whispers grew louder, more urgent. The jungle was no longer silent. It was alive with fury. The ancient forces were calling for their due. A scream shattered the air. a scream that froze Tariq in place. It was the cry of a man in agony, the voice full of terror. Tariq knew that scream. He had heard it 100 times, in his dreams, in his memories. It was his father's voice, twisted by pain and fear. From the shadows, a figure emerged. At first Tariq thought it was a trick of his mind, but no. The figure was real. It was Malik, but not the Malik he remembered. This man was a grotesque shadow of the father he had lost. His body was bent, twisted with torment, his once proud frame now shriveled and broken. His eyes, those eyes, were empty, hollow, as if the life had been drained from them. Tariq's breath caught in his throat as his father lurched toward him. There was no recognition in his gaze, no warmth. The man who had once guided him, taught him the ways of the hunt, was gone. In his place stood something monstrous. His father's hand reached out, not with the love of a parent, but with a hunger that sent chills through Tariq's body. The very sight of him was a nightmare come to life. Malik's voice came, raspy and low, a mockery of the words he had once spoken with pride. "You should not have come," he growled, his voice a sickly echo of the man he used to be. "The forest demands its due, and now you will pay." Tariq's heart pounded as he took a step back. The truth was clear now. His father, his pride, his legacy, they were all part of the debt. The broken pact had claimed them all. The forest had taken them as guardians, cursed to roam the jungle, paying the price for the betrayal that had occurred long before Tariq's birth. Tariq whispered, in horror, his voice trembling, This is the price of the betrayal." His father, once a proud hunter, had been reduced to a tormented shell, bound to the jungle as a servant of the spirits. The jungle trembled again. The earth itself seemed to groan in anticipation. The stranger's voice pierced through the chaos, echoing in Tariq's mind. "Fight for the land," the voice urged, "or be consumed by it. The forest will not spare you. The blood of your ancestors calls for payment." Tariq's mind spun. His father was no longer the man he had loved. He was an empty vessel, cursed and twisted by the broken pact. The jungle had claimed him, and now it sought to claim Tariq as well. But could he fight? Could he undo the wrongs of his bloodline? Malik's hand was upon him now, cold and clammy, gripping his neck with a strength that belied his tortured form. Tariq gasped for breath as the horror of the moment hit him. His father, the man who had once been his hero, was now an agent of the forest's vengeance, a force of darkness. Tariq's heart beat in his ears. He had a choice. He could fight, could try to undo the pact and save the land, but would that be enough to break the cycle? Or would he be consumed, swallowed whole, by the very jungle that had claimed his father? The choice was impossible, the stakes higher than anything he had ever known. As Malik's hands tightened around his throat, the jungle seemed to close in, the forest pressing down on him with the weight of centuries. Tariq's mind raced. Could he break the curse? Could he save the land and his people? Or would he fall, just like his father, a lost soul bound to the jungle forever? The battle between father and son had begun, and only one would emerge from the shadows of the jungle, their fate sealed by the choices of the past. Tariq's body ached as his father's hand squeezed tighter around his neck. The weight of his father's touch was no longer familiar. It was cold, unnatural. The forest around him roared with power, the jungle itself adding its pressure, as if trying to claim him, to drag him down into the depths of its ancient wrath. Tariq's limbs grew heavy, his vision blurring. The voices of the jungle, once whispers, now screamed in his ears, demanding his soul. His heart raced. The forest was closing in. But there was something inside him, a fire, a spark. The amulet, once a mere trinket, suddenly pulsed with a fierce light. The warmth of the glow surged through his body, flooding him with a strength he had never known. His fingers, stiff from the weight of his father's grip, found the power within the amulet. He twisted it in his hand, and in that moment, the light erupted brighter than the sun. A burst of energy exploded out from the amulet, ripping through the darkness. Tariq cried out as the power of the jungle clashed against the force within him. His father's grip faltered, his twisted form recoiling as if burned by the light. Tariq broke free, stumbling backward, gasping for air. The jungle trembled. The whispers that had tormented him silenced in an instant. The very air around him seemed to pause, holding its breath. For the first time, there was stillness. The jungle stood quiet, its fury quelled, the grip of the ancient forces released. Tariq's pulse thudded in his ears as he slowly turned to face the still body of his father. Malik lay there, lifeless. The grotesque figure of torment that had sought to claim him was gone, leaving only the still form of a man who had once been a father, a protector, a guide. Now, only emptiness remained. Tariq approached, his heart heavy. As he looked down at his father, he saw the true cost of the betrayal. His father's body, once strong and proud, was now a symbol of the ancestral debt that had festered for generations. The jungle had claimed him, had twisted him, as it had done to so many before. And now, Tariq could no longer deny the price his family had paid. A voice, low and sorrowful, broke the silence. The man who had warned him before appeared once again, his presence a reminder of the fragile balance of the land. "You've chosen the harder path," he said, his voice heavy with years of wisdom. "But it was the only path that could be walked. The balance is restored, but the road ahead will not be easy. The land has been scarred, and the work to heal it will fall to you and to those who come after you." Tariq swallowed hard. The man's words echoed in his mind. The forest, the jungle, the land, they were all intertwined, a delicate web of balance. His actions had restored part of it, but the price had been steep. The road to healing would be long, and the consequences of his ancestors' betrayal would stretch far beyond his lifetime. The weight of his family's legacy, their sins, now lay heavy on his shoulders. The amulet, once a symbol of hope, was now a constant reminder of what had been lost. But it was also a tool, one that could restore if used wisely. Tariq took a deep breath. His journey was far from over. The jungle, the land, and his people would need him. But the pain of his father's loss, the weight of their betrayal would always follow him. The past could not be erased, but the future was still his to shape. As he turned away from the lifeless body of his father, Tariq knew that the echoes of the past would follow him for the rest of his life. The jungle, though quiet now, would always be there, in the depths of his soul, reminding him of the price paid and the road still to travel. And though he walked away, he knew he would never truly leave the jungle behind. The burden of his family's sins was something he would carry forever. Tariq's steps were heavy, his mind filled with the weight of his journey. The jungle, the battle, his father, everything that had happened in those final moments echoed in his thoughts. The amulet still hung around his neck, but it no longer pulsed with the power that had guided him through the darkness. That strength had faded, leaving only the quiet. Yet the lessons learned along the way clung to him, like the dust on his shoulders. The jungle had shown him that every action, no matter how small, carried consequences. His choices, once born out of fear and confusion, had changed the path of his people forever. The past, no matter how much he wished it could be erased, would always remain. He had fought against it, struggled to undo the damage caused by his ancestors. But even as the jungle grew silent, the truth was clear. Some things cannot be undone. The secrets buried deep in the earth the debts paid with blood, and the spirits that watched over the land, all carried a weight that could never be forgotten. Tariq now understood that his efforts to right the wrongs of the past had only unearthed truths that would shape the future of his people. The forest had demanded its price. The jungle was not just trees and earth, it was a living force, its spirits ancient and powerful. The land had given, taken, and shifted beneath his feet, all in response to the choices made by his ancestors. Tariq had paid that price, and the forest was forever altered by his actions. The voices that had tormented him, the shadows that had stalked him were gone, but the land had been changed. There was no going back. As he walked, Tariq began to understand something deeper. The customs, the traditions that his people had clung to for generations had always been about preserving the past. But in the face of old mistakes and ancient rituals, he now realized it was the choices made in the present that shaped the future. The past, with all its burdens, was not what defined him. It was the decisions he made today that would determine his path and the path of his people. Tariq's journey had not ended with his victory. It had only led him to a deeper understanding. As he walked back to his village, his heart heavy with the knowledge of what he had done, he knew the work was far from finished. The balance was no longer in the hands of spirits and ancient forces. It was in the hands of the people, and it was up to them to rebuild, to heal, and to move forward. The village would remember the jungle's secrets, just as they would remember Tariq's journey, but the future would be shaped by what they chose to do with those lessons. The spirits might still whisper in the wind, but now it was the voices of the living that would decide the fate of the land. And Tariq knew that the lesson he carried about the power of choices, about the cost of betrayal and the strength of the present, would shape his people's future as much as the spirit's call had shaped his own journey.